Welcome back to the Greybeards podcast, where we have myself, Mike Betcher, former network foreign correspondent and war correspondent for 4 decades, Bob Sands, Hall of Fame investigative journalist, and Ken Campbell, military intelligence, former military intelligence, not current, but former, and former naval special operations, and a man of many talents and positions he held after he left the U.S. Navy and military intelligence. So, hey guys, how you been?
Yeah, it's just trying to keep up with the ever-changing situation with the war and negotiations and whatnot.
Before we get going, we were just talking before we came on. Tell us what's special about this month.
Yeah, so May is a month to honor explosive ordnance disposal technicians, all services for the service and sacrifice that those in the community have done. There's an annual reunion every year at Fort Destin, Florida, and that's going on. That went on this weekend with a gala and all kinds of other activities where EOD techs, again from all four services, had the opportunity to get together and reconnect with their comrades and then to honor all those who provided the ultimate sacrifice.
So, are all of you in EOD, explosive ordnance disposal? Is that right? Do I have the EOD right? Right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right. That's Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air
yeah.
Force.
Are all of you crazy?
Yes, yes, of course.
I just wanted to make sure. I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure. It takes what kind of cat does that sort of thing? Because I can't. I would be wetting my pants every damn time.
Well, I think going into it, it's thrill seeking and the adventure.
Yeah, until you encounter that first bomb, right?
Well, we have a saying, it's something like initial success or complete failure, right?
Yeah, yeah. There's no really kind of in between on that.
Not so much.
Hey, do you think Kurt Locker really captured that
I
personality
think
type in that job?
there was hyperbole in there, but I thought that was a pretty good, characterization.
The scene in that movie that resonated with me, and when it came out, and before it came out, I was in that horrible rotation of 2 months in Baghdad, one for NBC, 1 month out, 2 months in, 1 month out. So it had the 2 months in, and you'd be like a wreck for that 1 month you came back to kind of rehabilitate and rest because you were thinking, oh my God, I'm going back in 4 weeks. And there was that scene in Hurt Locker where he goes in the supermarket and he's so overwhelmed by the aisles full of everything. Uh, it's just impossible to comprehend. I had that same feeling when I'd go to a supermarket when I came back from Iraq. I mean, I'm not a bomb disposal technician, but that movie really resonated with me. I thought it captured a lot of different elements of what it's like to be under that stress for so long and trying to reattach to the real world when you come back home. It's virtually impossible.
Yeah, that's true, Mike. Definitely true.
Speaking of supermarkets, Bob, and costs and everything going up, it looks like, let's see, the war's still, well, officially, the administration has terminated hostilities, but hasn't. Is that where we're at, Bob?
Stockpile is very, very thin. And because of that, we have not seen the full impact of what this is going to all add up to at the pump and a whole lot of other ways. So something has to give pretty darn soon.
But I don't know what can give. Neither side's going to give.
Yeah, I think that he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Uh, both sides are claiming victory. Iran's got this asymmetric chokehold on the straits. And, from the president's perspective and Secretary War's perspective, we bombed the hell out of them. I know that, and I'm sure you all saw the news reports as well. The CENTCOM commander was up in Washington, I think on Friday, to discuss additional kinetic options. And I think that given what we understand about the president and his overarching desire not to be viewed as weak or a loser, I'm afraid that we're going to be going back to a little kinetic action here shortly.
That's what the Iranians expect. They made the comment. The new supreme leader has made a actual comment about all of this, saying they're not giving up the Strait of Hormuz. That's not going to happen. And they're expecting, the war to reignite.
And again, yeah, and with those mines in the Straits of Hormuz and the ability of Iran to continue putting them down there isn't a whole lot we can do. We've talked about it a bit, about what it takes to do mine countermeasures or mine removal. And that's not something that you do when you're being shot at. So this is a tough situation for sure.
So, Ken, put your intelligence analyst cap on here. We don't have a big international coalition because no one's with us. So, we're not going to be able to take down Iran the way we took down Iraq or Afghanistan before that. So, what are the military options? I mean, we've most things. I mean, the president and the Secretary of Defense talk about, and the tactical military victories, which we've had many, but I'm not sure what you would do right now militarily that would make a difference, that would alter the status quo. What do you think?
I agree. I mean, we can certainly look at putting boots on the ground on those islands that are right there in proximity to the Gulf and have been used by Iran for military purposes. I mean, there's troops and weapons provision there. There's also civilian population there. Short of taking geographies that are absolutely involved in supporting Iran's ability to keep a stranglehold on the straits, I don't know, Mike. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, the only option to me looks like trying to secure the Straits of Hormuz, but that would put American boots on Iranian soil, and that would be a big fight. And the country should expect significant casualties if that sort of thing does happen. I don't think that's going to be a cakewalk at all.
No, absolutely not. And if you look at the geography that Iran certainly has its go fast boats spread out through and whatnot. I mean, it's a lot of territory. It's a god awful lot of territory. So, and remember, it only takes one or two mines to jack up the Gulf or the Straits rather. So they're sitting with an asymmetric upper hand. Um, you know, we could blast the hell out of them, and as long as they're still able to put mines in the Straits or have mines there, you're not going to have any of that commercial shipping going through for reasons we've already discussed with regard to insurance costs and risk management and this sort of thing. So one thing I do want to mention though is, Bobby or Mike, you in our last podcast brought up the specter of Somali pirates grabbing an oil tanker.
They did.
They did. We're going to Sizzler. We're going to Sizzler.
I called that one. I mean, you could see that coming a mile away. And apparently that tanker's in Somali waters now on its way. The U.S. has also repatriated the crew and will repatriate the ship, I believe, to Pakistan that we seized in the Indian Ocean, I believe. Just saw that. And that is something that is happening kind of as we speak. I'm just trying to find out. Well, yeah, apparently it is just checking stuff here. Apparently it is happening. So, I'm not so sure. I'll be the contrarian here. I'm not so sure there's going to be further military action like we've seen before. You would think that the Joint Chiefs and the military briefers going in would be saying, and the political advisors would be saying, there's nothing that we can really do right now that changes the game, except open the Straits of Hormuz. And that's going to be tough because the Iranians still have hundreds of those small boats hidden in caves along their coast near the Straits of Hormuz and in the Persian Gulf. They can easily put out mines, which would stop the traffic. We could put several thousand troops on those islands and on the Iranian side of the straits, and they could still close it down. The arithmetic doesn't work, I don't think. That there's not enough American forces to do this. And we have, on the ground, we'll have no partners, none. It's just us. And, to what end? Maybe they'll surprise me and the administration will surprise me and they'll come up with some idea that really works. But I don't comprehend it. I watch and read, uh, you know, people considered to be the top experts in this part of the world, and none of them think that anything's going to change the status quo. And today there was an Iranian official, I think it's the assistant speaker of the parliament, but said that the Straits of Hormuz will not return ever to the status that it had before, which is free passage. That I think the Iranians like having the toll booths set up there and people going through and paying as they're going down the ocean turnpike loaded with oil and goods. So I don't know, just my thought.
Always they kept the streets closed. Nobody could go through. So they get told this help. At some point, if they keep that up, that's going to add up just big bucks. With hundreds of ships going through every day, and everybody paying millions of bucks.
Yeah. Well,
So,
I just reviewed what the president's response was to the 14-point plan, and in a nutshell, he said it's not acceptable. They haven't paid a big enough price yet. Well, either it's either enjoy additional economic stress as this thing continues to build, and or despite what Mike's opinion is on this, back to the maths, back to a little kinetic action. But I do agree with Mike, though. I don't know what continuing to bomb the hell out of them does. They've already proven a resiliency, and if anything, these strikes have put the hardliners in a better spot. I mean, the IRGC is for the main in charge.
and there are tankers getting through, not huge numbers of tankers, but there are tankers going from Iran that are heading to Asia, China. Bob, do you saw the report on the one? I almost see the most likely option. Let me throw this out to you guys and see what you think. And this is just coming back, how history repeats itself. But, I remember going back to the early 80s, and I was there in Lebanon when U.S. Marines landed as peacekeepers in Beirut. Then we had the Marine barracks bombing in 83, and we left. It was not a good time in the Reagan administration and in this country as a whole. I mean, an immense tragedy, And then very shortly afterwards, we have the short but victorious and successful Grenadian War that gave the U.S. a victory. And again, looking back, this is a Reagan administration that was preparing to run for its second term. They pivoted away from the Middle East into a victory they could have in the Caribbean. And I think that same Caribbean model exists now, and that sooner rather than later, we're going to see some sort of action against Cuba. And because this is a government right now that likes to change up the news, not just every day, but like every hour, and have people focus somewhere else and not over here where we're not having success. very likely could have success in Cuba. But this whole issue in the Gulf, I think, very frankly, I think it's going to be an issue through the midterms. Hey, look, the Iranians know our political calendar as well. I don't see them, giving Trump a victory before the midterms. They don't. I think that it's in their interest to keep it going, and they think if they can create more pain, their time frame they can operate under these circumstances is longer than the time frame that the West and the United States can. So I really expect to see something happen in Cuba this summer, and I think early this summer maybe.
And, tracking the polls on Trump's, uh, continuing slide into unpopularity. And I mean, there's some incredibly low numbers out there if you look at it state by state. Everything's below, for the main, 50%. Some states hold him in, such low regard. He's only polling 19%. So, he is at this point, I think, if he does not do something, to reestablish some kind of normalcy in the Persian Gulf, he's not only lost the midterms, it goes well beyond that.
Yeah.
But, that's uh that's a sin I don't think he can recover from. That's the sin of being prideful and narcissistic and all those other fun things.
So Bobby, what else you seeing out there?
Those elections coming up in November, as Ken so well pointed out, are critical. And the way it's going right now in Oklahoma is all about, on the GOP side, who is most Trump-like and who
Yeah.
discouraged Trump and claimed to be Republicans. And it's all about Trump. What is it, as Ken pointed out, someplace where he's at 19% in the polling and not 54% like here?
So Ken, tell us about your latest Beastworks report out.
Yeah, so we at Beachworks Information Group decided to go ahead and run an analysis of this question. Was Trump duped, or did he do this willingly with full knowledge of what what might what might be in store? I expected, being biased, that he would come back and say, yeah, he was duped. Netanyahu pandered to his, um, certainly weakness of being beloved, and, um, told that he's the greatest guy on earth. And I thought that was probably instrumental in him making that decision, but not so much the case. We pulled, we pulled, like 4 decades worth of information that looked at his business dealings and court cases and all kinds of things associated with his decision-making process. And a couple things stood out. One, he was already predisposed to deal with Iran heavy-handedly, and I think we saw that in your clip of Barbara Walters' interview in the last podcast, where he talked about just going into Iran and taking oil. I think that was a 1987 interview. So he's had kind of an axe to grind with Iran going back years, holding a position that, they have no right to stand on all that oil, and we should be able to go in and just take it. And so, whatever was discussed to go in with Netanyahu already, um, he was already predisposed, and it wasn't as much as being duped as it was his own personal feeling about Iran as a country, as a people, as a threat. And there's some legitimate argument with regard to the threat. And the question is, at this point, what happens? What happens? Are we going to, my assessment is that, whatever comes out of this, we're going to be in a worse position than we were before we went into it, quite frankly.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And yeah, that's why that video is really key, Bob, that you showed in that Barbara Walters interview done with Trump back in '87. He's had this in his mind for a long time. And I think his confidence that it could be pulled off was bolstered by the way Venezuela went down and getting Maduro and doing that. I think, hubris is a dangerous thing. It worked. What works in one place doesn't work, elsewhere. And that's apples and oranges, Venezuela and Iran, as we all know. Wow. So,
Greater question I have is, I'm sorry, Bobby. Go ahead. Yeah, the greater question I have is, what line of bullshit is Hegseth, feeding him? I can only imagine. I watched Hegseth on the. Did you guys watch any of that congressional testimony that went
some
down
of it.
today, where he was supposed to be talking about the budget, and it turned into a, pretty much a bitter back and forth where nothing substantive was really heard from him.
Yeah.
God, I hope so. But then, I mean, this is a classic story of the emperor has no clothes. I want to keep my job. So my God, you look great, but you're naked.
Yeah.
And it ain't a pretty picture.
Yeah.
We're being run by a fairy tale. What happened at the very end? Some young innocent boy said, "But emperor, you're not wearing any clothes," or something like that. And the next thing you know, he's scrambling, right?
Well, that's the difference between the first Trump administration and the second. You had some competent people there in the first, not all of them, but some of them. And there were guardrails set up, and boy, there aren't any this time, just sycophants,
I'm still
And
worried about those nukes,
yeah, yeah. Well, Bobby, before we wind this down, anything more you want to throw at us? Boy, on that cheery note, on that cheery note, Bob, I won't be able to sleep tonight. Thanks for leaving us on that. Yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me. The people feel that way, and they may be right. Just hope they aren't.
I will say this: thank God, there's still all kinds of jobs out there, in the service industry, HVAC, automotive engineering, aircraft maintenance, all that sort of thing. If y'all
Except at Spirit Airlines.
for Spirit Airlines, they're
Yeah.
screwed. But, if y'all know any good marine mechanics that want to move to Virginia, I can line them up for some work.
Okay. Well, let's see what we can do for them. Well, anyway, gentlemen, good chat. And we'll check back in later in the week, okay?
All right, Mike.
So,
Thanks.
okay, so this is Mike Betcher signing off from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, home of the world champion Oklahoma City Thunder, who will take on the Los Angeles Lakers coming up here short Tuesday. Yeah, here we go. Okay, guys. Talk to you soon.
See you later.
Bye.